streaming and let you guys start.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December meeting of the Board of Park Commission. Okay, then. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December Board of Park Commissioners meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:31 and welcome everyone who is here. Jen and I did have our pre-meeting prep meeting, and we do not have any additions or deletions to the agenda. Does anyone else have any changes they need to make or want to propose tonight? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you
Hey
for
guys,
my
this is Erwin. I'm in transit, so I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Erwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Jen, any announcements, introductions tonight?
I don't have any announcements. And I think we have introduced all the new park board members. So
We have.
it's always a good idea though, just to go around and do quick introductions for the public in case.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. So my name's Sarah Daniels, and this is my last meeting serving as chair of the Board of Park Commissioners. Thank you.
My name is Aaron Wheeler. I am a park commissioner.
I am Camber Good, Park Commissioner.
Wendy
Hey
Goodwin,
guys,
Park Commissioner.
Thank you.
and this is Erwin Vidalian. I apologize, I'm in transit, so I'll turn on my video when I get to my final location. So, and I'm park commissioner.
Thank you. Jen?
Oh, yep. Jen Burbage, Director of Parks, Culture and Recreation for the City of Lacey. Sue is on her way, as is Commissioner Larson. So we'll have them introduced real quick once they jump on. And we'll have Sarah note the time that they jump on as well. And we have Sarah Smith, who's our executive assistant as well tonight. Jamie Oakland didn't think he'd be able to make it tonight, but there's a possibility he'll jump on. So,
Sounds good. Thank you. And so hoping everyone had an opportunity to review the November meeting minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, anything they saw that would need to be changed? I did not.
We'll make a motion to approve the November meeting minutes.
Cool. Can I get a second?
I will second.
Cool. Thank you, Wendy. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, aye.
Yay.
Hey.
Thank you. Cool. So item 5, correspondence. We did have a few items this week.
Yeah, so thanks, Sarah. So hopefully everybody had a chance to look through those. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. One thing I wanted to note is that we had some positive feedback, which is always fun and appreciated. So other than that, I wasn't planning to go through them item by item, but happy to answer questions, like I said.
I did have one question. So the one about the Thornberry Park soccer, approximately, like, I mean, how many, she didn't really specify how many times she noticed like this increase, but you know, you mentioned in your feedback that you would be looking at spacing out you know, soccer games more, you know, potentially. I mean, is there just maybe a few times in the season that there is a lot of overlap with some of the games that are creating this, or is this like an every weekend affair for them there? Like, how frequently is that happening?
Yeah, soccer games are an every weekend affair at that site. But what I learned when I looked into it with staff, so Sue had done most of our scheduling in the past, but in her new role as recreation manager, we have other newer staff that were doing the scheduling. And so Sue thought that it could be easily fixed by just looking at how the schedule, I don't have any more detail than that.
Okay.
I could find out if you wanted me to.
No,
But the gist of it is that it shouldn't be, I mean, it shouldn't be as bad as the picture shows. I mean, the picture does tell 1,000 words, right? say 1,000 words of, gosh, that was really congested. And yeah, for one of our neighborhood parks, it shouldn't be
Yeah.
at that level. So I think there was probably some overscheduling that happened.
Yeah, because I've been to that park during a, what seemed like a full soccer schedule to visit friends who lived nearby, and yeah, parking there was a lot of people there, but there wasn't like, I felt a dangerous level of congestion and concern. So I didn't know, I just had an experience with that level that she was experiencing. So
Yeah,
It was helpful she sent a picture.
totally.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay. Item 6, citizen public comment. Don't think we have anyone attending tonight.
Okay, so we do have, I do see a couple members of the public in the audience. And so yeah.
So
this
how
would be
does it
time-
work if someone wants to comment? Do I instruct people to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen? If they're on Zoom, do they?
I believe that's, yeah, Sarah Smith, can you see if they're raising their hand and if they would like to comment? I believe that that's the case. Oh, yes, I see someone with a raised hand.
And
It's
so,
Adam. Okay, can you bring Adam in?
yes, I can. One moment.
And so Adam, when you join, if you'd be so kind as to just introduce yourself for the record.
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. First of all, thanks for having me. My name is Adam Berryhuff. I've been living in Olympia for a little over 20 years. And I had brought to Jennifer's attention just something that I've been thinking about a lot in regards to the Laceys skate park over there, Rainier Vista Skate Park. I've been also skateboarding in Olympia for over 20 years. Frequently on dry days, I make a trip up to Puyallup Skate Park, the closest skate park that has lights. And I just think it'd be really beneficial for us to consider getting lights at that park. I know like a lot of people that use that park don't necessarily have the financial means to go up and do other board sports like snowboard in the winter. And I think it would be a pretty big quality of life game changer for a lot of people that use that park. So I kind of just wanted to open that conversation.
So Adam, really appreciate that you came in person to give us your comments. I don't know if you are the same. I think you are the same person then who sent the comments to Jen Burbage at the city. So when we saw your comments at the meeting last month, we did have a conversation and we do have interest in exploring what you're proposing further. So even though you don't see it on tonight's agenda, we have requested that it be added to a future agenda. So I think that because you reached out to Jen, she could notify you when it's on the agenda so that you can participate as well. But we certainly have budget considerations, et cetera. So the staff will have to do a little research for us, et cetera. But we're definitely interested in your suggestion and want to move forward with a discussion at a future meeting sometime in the near future.
That's awesome. Yeah. Keep me posted. I'm happy to stay involved in the conversation. I also know a lot of people in the community that are involved in different sports that go on around the park. So if there's anything that you guys need or any way I can advocate for it, I'm happy to continue participation. But thanks for the consideration. I appreciate it.
I think I'd suggest too, just for your sake, when you learn that it's going to be on the agenda, anyone else that would like to, come to a meeting and comment, we're open and love to hear feedback from people. So just any connections that you have with people who are using the park on a regular basis in the evening, just encourage them to also join in that conversation.
Cool. Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Anyone else, questions or comments? Cool. So we can't really continue this conversation tonight with public comment, but definitely appreciate you coming, and we will look forward to talking about this soon.
We have one more public comment.
Okay. So Dustin, when you're live, would you please just begin by introducing yourself for the record? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dustin Brewer. I'm living in Olympia or / Lacey. And what's crazy is I'm also commenting on the skate park over at Rainier Vista that I'm all for having lights. I'm an older skater, so I work until 5 o'clock every day. And in the evenings is when I have time to go skate. So if there's any possibility of having lights at the park, I'm all for it. So that's it.
So Dustin, it's a coincidence that you're here commenting tonight. Were you aware Adam had sent something in? I'm just curious if your comment is random.
Oh, no. On Instagram, I think it was like local skate shop or somebody had posted up, hey, they're having a meeting over at the City of Lacey
Oh,
Parks
interesting.
Department. That's how I found out.
Great. Well, that's great. I mean, I'm just always curious about how things get communicated. And so that's great. So Dustin, I'm assuming you just heard our conversation with Adam. So yes, we're interested in moving forward with a discussion on this topic. So just, stay connected. And because you commented tonight, I think Jen would also reach out to you to let you know when it's going to be on the agenda.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye. Happy holidays. Cool. Anyone else, Sarah? Are we good to go?
No more public comments noted. We are good to go.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to number 7, old business, the Great Kuya Park and Greenways Master Plan update. Is Juliet joining us tonight?
Yes, Juliet
Okay.
is in the audience, so she's going to get promoted here.
Okay,
by
great.
Sarah.
Thank you.
And I will definitely introduce her. I want to make sure she can hear everything that we're saying, so I'll wait till she gets in.
And while she's chatting, if you don't mind, I'm going to take myself off video and have a few bites of dinner, but I will be listening.
Sounds good. And we have
All
Juliet.
right. Can everybody hear me?
Awesome. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so Juliet, we're happy to have her back with us for Great Kuya Park and Greenways Master Plan. We had promised to debrief regarding the open house number 3, which is our final open house for the project, and also the associated public input survey that went along with open house number 3, which we just closed. That it was open for the better part of November. And so she is going to discuss not only some of the changes we anticipate for the final master plan, but also next steps. So Juliet, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Good to see everybody again and to meet some of the new members. So I am proposing I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to use the presentation that we made as at the open house number 3 as our guide for discussion today. We're going to I'll skim through a lot of the stuff you guys have already heard or had the presentation on what the various programmatic elements included in the master plan are. So I'm not going to go into any of that in detail. Which means I'm going to be flipping through really, really fast. So if you do want to pause or have a question, reiterate a comment or a thought from some of our previous discussions, then by all means, please just holler out, because once I start sharing screen, I can't always see if somebody raises a hand and kind of keep track of those comments at the same time.
And on that note, Juliet, on that note, I'm just going to jump in really fast. I just wanted to say welcome to Commissioner Larson. I see that
I
he's
just came on board.
All right, awesome. Thanks for
Hi.
and Sue's there as well. Thanks for your help, Sue. So Sarah Smith, if you could just note Commissioner Larson was here at 5:44 p.m. in the minutes, that would be great. Okay, go ahead, Juliet.
All right.
And we're on
I
one
am
deal.
sharing my screen. Can I get a confirmation, Jen, that you can see? Okay.
I can see.
Thank you very much. All right, move some of my views out of here. Okay, so welcome to our open house number 3 presentation. Let me make this full screen so you can see it a little bit better as I flip through these slides. You all know about the background, our rules of engagement, vision, and where we're at in the world, so I'll skip through all of that. We went through at the open house what the summary from the previous open house was. So that's what these slides all represent, kind of walking through what we heard at the meeting itself. And then we also walked through the results of the online survey that was live associated with the second open house. And as a reminder, that second open house is where we were showing multiple alternatives and asking for feedback on, do you like A or B? Do you like this type of activity more than this type of activity? And so we were trying to get the feedback we needed to develop a preferred plan. We also had an update to Lacey Cares. And so we kind of showed just a handful of the graphs that are part of the results of the Lacey Cares outreach process, and kind of highlighted where these responses aligned with the programming that we were proposing as part of our project. So preserve open space and natural areas, for example, ranked really high, expanded walking trails, adding playgrounds. And we kind of did that for each of these elements that were part of the Lacey Cares. We are going to focus in on different areas of the park now. So it's really kind of hard to see at a large scale overall, the various elements being proposed. So we kind of jump in and out of scales a little bit in order to walk the participants through. We did highlight the various access points. So the primary access again is off of Carpenter Road, right in this area, with the bulk of our improvements in what we're calling the core area, this yellow box. And you can see on the aerial that the vast majority of those fall within the existing open lawn area. And then we talked through kind of the various programming elements at each of our locations, and the little hiker icon identifies where pedestrian access specifically occurs throughout the park. We then zoom in, and you can see in our key map where we're at in the world with the elements of the master plan and the key plan that relates to those. So kind of walking through, these are all the same concepts that you saw previously, rendered and labeled a little bit differently, but all still the same concepts in the same location.
Email on this? I'm not sure. I think.
And then we showed a handful of photographs as examples of the various elements. So kind of just walking through, what do we mean by a primary trail? What size? You know, kind of giving people a sense of both what it looked like, as well as a little bit more detail and insight into the intent of the design. Restrooms, shelters, the adventure track in the playground, the demonstration garden, and the food forest. What we mean by a fitness loop and where that's located, and the off-leash dog area. Bioretention facilities to support all these improvements, and then the maintenance facility. Outdoor education that is kind of scattered throughout, and the disc golf. And then we paused for a discussion on what people had, any questions they had, or what they thought about the design and the concepts proposed. The majority of people in talking through this core area really had mostly positive things to say. We didn't have the same kind of polling that we did from previous open houses, because there wasn't really a do you like A, B, or C kind of discussion. It was really presenting what we heard, showing them how it resulted in the preferred master plan, and asking for feedback. We did hear, I'll just kind of flip back to this for an example. We did hear, so let me rephrase, the online survey followed very much the same format. And so we asked in the online survey also similarly, what do you like or dislike about this concept? What would you like us to tell us about this area of the park? So in looking through the feedback, both from the online meeting and from the survey, which just closed basically yesterday. So we're still kind of analyzing a little bit, but we actually got a lot of really positive feedback for this. Mostly positive input to what they liked, that it was represented, the interests. There are still concerns with, how close the dog park might be to natural areas. There are still, some concerns that continue to come up with being able to maintain the facility once it gets built, very similar to the concerns we heard during previous meetings. There were also, a lot of the times there were concerns raised with the caveat that said, but I really appreciate the process and I'm happy with the results. So I think, until you get to a final design and really nail down exactly with survey and detailed information, I think there's a lot of trust that the vision and the kind of qualifications, the qualities that we've been talking about will continue to get pursued into those future phases, but also I would take it as just a lot of wanting to make sure that we remember this is still designed and built in a neighborhood, and to kind of respond and try to keep those buffers to those adjacent residents intact. So the other half of the core area is that environmental learning center zone. So this, of course, is connected to the main part we were just looking at through the entry drive. Would continue past our main parking lot. It has some overflow parking that could serve both the main access area, any events that happen in the Great Lawn, as well as any overflow for events or activities that might happen in the meeting space. We are, of course, looking at a small community event space as part of the initial development, with the opportunity to expand into the larger learning center. And then the learning center loop trail, which is more of a discovery loop focused on education and environmental education components. Another playground that is, again, focused very much on nature play, trying to reinforce and reiterate that connection to nature, and the suspension bridge that connects us over to Pleasant Glade. And then the north portion of the core area is really focused on trails and that disc golf course, as well as the maintenance access and turnaround up in this corner across from the future connection for 31st Avenue Extension. We had a series of photos that showed what some of these elements looked like. And then we walked through the event space. The event space, we talked about the various types of events that could happen. This is an example where it's set up with a series of tents. This would be your farmer's market, your holiday bazaar, your festival type of event. You could also set it up to support an amphitheater with a stage brought in, sponsorship tents, other sorts of things that might occur. In all of these cases, you have kind of the parking directly adjacent to it, but in these cases, we're also assuming that some of that lawn space becomes overflow and additional parking capacity. So we're kind of wrapping parking around the Great Lawn, as well as anticipating that the Great Lawn could be used for parking. In all of these cases, we're also anticipating for these larger events, you'd have porta potties or something brought in to support sanitization stations, other things like that. And then the last one we kind of did is that idea of the fun run. This is actually based on coordination we did with the cross-country coach and looking at the capacity and the ability to host national cross-country teams and tournaments. If this tournaments meets, cross-country meets would be the right word. But it could also suffice for a 5K, a 10K, different kinds of fun runs and different types of activities. So really it is a route that could accommodate a number of different kind of race style events. And then we paused for discussion there as well. What we heard a lot on this was really just a lot of support. I think people really liked it. There was a lot of comments about restrooms, making sure there were restrooms, making sure there was parking to support events if there were going to be events, and that they just really liked that flexibility of an open space and how it could be used in the future. We then kind of walked through Pleasant Glade Park and showed what Pleasant Glade would look like. As a reminder, this is kind of the secondary access point that we developed to a greater level of detail. 31st, we don't have a lot of detail on in both the Hawks Prairie and the Covington Court area. We don't have a lot of detail in, so those are really more just a bubble on the plan and an indication of a size. This is one that we have a little bit more detail on. So we developed it as a prototype of an example of what one of these secondary access points could look like. So they include parking. In this case, we pulled the parking lot in quite a ways from the main road to kind of just help protect the very rural kind of visual feel of driving and moving through the neighborhood. So it gives you lots of opportunity to buffer the parking lot. The parking lot is also situated intentionally right where the old house and driveway used to be. So it uses the same driveway. The parking is where the house used to be. So everything is kind of pulled back intentionally to give that similar buffer and visual as what might have been there previously. And then a small parking shelter, loop trails, kind of a microcosm of the same types of activities that are proposed in some of the larger areas. And then this is also number 8, where that expansion of disc golf could occur. We showed, again, just kind of walked through photos of what those look like in relation to where they're at for Pleasant Glade. And then paused. The comments that we received in a lot of the discussion at Pleasant Glade were just concerns about the parking lot itself, bringing, how many cars, is it going to, how's it going to affect the character of the neighborhood? How's that going to affect noise to the neighbors that are nearby? We actually, oddly enough, I guess interestingly enough, had comments that people were concerned about parking, but also we had some comments, at least on the online survey, that people wanted more parking at Pleasant Glade. I was doing some quick math, and I think it was about 30 some odd percent sort of liked or loved the concept. And most of the comments that people were concerned about really related to, if, this is a quiet country road, the amount of perceived danger or negative impact that cars coming and people coming to this park might convey. We did ask on the online survey and also at the open house, is there anything missing from these concepts? And so at Pleasant Glade, people kind of mentioned basketball courts, which really we kind of considered early on in the process and had mostly comments to not include things that were courts that had that harder surface or active role to them, and restrooms, which in this case, we don't have access to sewer. So this is one of the areas that would not have a restroom because we just lack the utility opportunity at this location. Other things they mentioned were playgrounds, ADA access, edible plants, things that could certainly be included in future design.
Yeah, my foot's gonna die.
We walked through the trails at Palm Creek headwaters. And in this case, we really spent some time talking to them about the existing trail system and where we intentionally changed the plans from the existing trail system. So there's some informal trails that kind of feel fairly formal that's been developed over time by the community members. We've heard again and again from this neighborhood that they really want to protect the environment. They want to make sure we're not impacting those natural systems. And so we took care to utilize the same existing trail system that they had previously. So we're not providing any additional trails or impact to the forest, but we did, the two caveats to that are existing trails that were continuing along the creek itself, we intentionally removed so that we can protect that creek environment. So we limited creek access to specific crossings instead of having a trail go along the creek edge. There's some existing trails that project into the protected rights zones. So we intentionally, again, removed and realigned those trails to provide a similar loop, but kept it outside of that protected rights parcel. And there's some existing trails that actually go off the property entirely. So we pulled those back into the property. So really the only time we really changed anything was when it would enhance the environment or protect the environment better than what it was currently shown. And we made sure everything also kept with the minimum 100 feet buffer that the neighborhood requested. And then we actually have about 200 feet in almost all cases. This is kind of highlighting the access point off of the north extension, and just kind of talked about the size and the scale of that there would also be one up on Hawks Prairie. And then within this trail system, the smaller mountain bike trail that was being proposed as, again, that family kind of scale activity. And then the rest of the trails in the Northwest really being limited to a single trail route that goes to an overlook of what is one of our most pristine environments. So we really want to keep all the rest of the access out of this zone and limit it just to that one educational opportunity. Didn't get a whole lot of comments here. Surprisingly, even in that Palm Creek headwaters area with those trails, I think there's always going to continue to be concerns with neighbors and proximity to neighbors. We intentionally pulled the 31st Avenue extension further away from the neighborhood. So while there's still some concerns to that, we were able to reply that it was moved further back than what was shown previously based on their comments. And we scaled down Hawks Prairie and the Covington Court, Palm Creek headwaters areas a little bit further than what was shown previously, just because of those concerns with how much it might impact the natural environment in those locations. So I think there's still concerns, particularly with how it'll be managed, maintained, transient, vandalism, safety, security, similar concerns to what you'd see in any park development. But overall, I think people were really pleased to see the trails. Online survey, we got a lot of comments that they loved the connectivity of the Palm Creek headwaters to Pleasant Glade and to the rest of the site. And then at the open house, we had a couple of comments of people really wanting to make sure that those trails could actually be used as a through traffic for non-motorized, as well as just like coming and parking and utilizing the trail system, connecting it to the regional trail. There's a couple locations like within a quarter or a half mile away from this park that if with enough kind of longer term, bigger scale planning, if we could make those connections, this park could actually be a non-motorized transportation route in this quadrant of the city as well. So a few people thinking even beyond how this park could help that larger transportation system, which was pretty cool to see. All right, then we talked about phasing, and this is what we're proposing for the initial phase. I'm going to actually go ahead and walk through this because I don't think we talked about this in any great detail at our last meeting. We did talk about some initial investment of a smaller scale to try and get the park open first and foremost as our initial investment and goal. And so what the initial improvements for phase one are really focused on is a portion of the parking. So this is just a blow up of this area of the park. So a portion of the parking that would also include the restroom and shelters, kind of that little bit of that entry plaza just to interconnect everything, and at least some portion of an open lawn. It does not include the playground, the food forest or demonstration gardens, but it does include the off-leash area and then the primary trail systems that connect it so that you could also have the disc golf built out in this initial phase. Within that, we are also looking at even what we're calling like the mini phase or the phase 1A, which is even a smaller initial investment just to get the park open and what that minimum phase could be with this kind of larger phase one being proposed. We asked at the meeting and at the public open house where they would like to focus attention beyond phase one. So once we get the park open and these trails developed, what should we tackle next? And so we had an option A that is really focused on the flexible open space. So you could hold those events and functions and activities. We had option B that was building out the rest of the core area. So that's the food forest, demonstration gardens, and playgrounds. And we had an option C that focused on building out more of the trail system. In this case, we focused on east of Carpenter Road. And then we did our live poll. I'm going to come out of this presentation so I can show you our phasing survey results. So our live poll during the meeting had us more interest in building out the trails around Carpenter Road. The core area came in second and the flexible open space was third. There's not a huge variation between these, but there's definitely a distinction. When we go to our online survey, we have almost equal between the core build out and more trails to the east, and not really that much less. Just right behind that is the flexible open space. So I think there's not real clear direction on what to happen next. I suspect, and as you read through the more detailed comments, the core area is a lot because of the playground. I think a lot of people want to see that playground. But a lot of people want as many trails as they can get. So I think if I'm going to infer, and I haven't gotten into all the details of this one yet, that building out that playground might be pretty important, maybe more so than some of the other elements that are in the rest of that core area, and to just continue to try and build out those trail systems. The open space was actually not that far behind when you kind of think of the context of the number of people kind of responding to this and what we heard in the verbal comments and discussions during the open house, but a little bit more interest in those trails and playground. Let me go back to our open house. And then that was the end of our presentation. Then we opened it up for questions. We had a handful of comments. I think most of the ones I've already described. The only other couple of things that really stood out in the survey responses, we had asked, is there anything missing from these concepts? And there were some questions about skate park, RC, remote control vehicles and drones, things, the basketball courts, things that we had considered as part of the process and decided this wasn't the best location for. And I think we have lots of good reasons why those aren't included. I think, as I mentioned, there's a continued just concern as this gets developed further about understanding the neighborhood context and traffic and, trash and maintenance of the park associated with that. The couple of things that came out in particular, I think, was restrooms. There were a number of comments about, please make sure there's enough restrooms, make sure there's restrooms at trailheads, restrooms, that there was just a need with this facility to have restrooms. And right now we're really just showing, I'll use this as the example. We have a restroom in this main core area, and we are proposing a restrooms as this trailhead gets developed over here after 31st. So as this becomes a trailhead, we would assume it would also include a restroom because it kind of serves this half of the park. But we don't currently have a restroom up in this upper parking lot next to the dog park. And this parking lot here serves as the starting point for the disc golf course, as well as the dog park, and is likely also kind of a little bit of a trailhead for this trail system to the north. So one thing we were suggesting was to add a restroom in this area of the park to respond to some of the comments we had. As we move over towards the environmental learning center area, as this space gets developed, it can include, a shared restroom, indoor and outdoor, a separate outdoor or an indoor, but I think restrooms are covered as part of the cost and the vision for this facility. So really the only spot that seemed like it was missing that we could readily add back in was the area around the dog park. As of right now, that is the only change we're proposing based on the comments that we heard. And I think I'm just going to stop there and see if anyone has any questions.
Juliet, I have a quick question. First, thank you very much. I mean, your presentations are really helpful and very detailed. I noticed on one of the slides where it showed the results for people's choices for option A, B, or C, there was a small percentage at the bottom that said other. And you had mentioned, did that point to anything that someone thought was missing? Or do you recall what that might have been?
I don't recall offhand, but I can actually pull it up.
And don't take a lot of time to do it. I just was more curious than anything, because you said at the wrap up, you were like, so is there anything we're missing? So it just made me wonder if there might be something something unusual.
Yeah, it's not going to take me more than just a minute here.
Okay.
So let me just pull it up and see.
Thank you.
And while she's doing that, I will just mention that drones are allowed at all of our parks. We have to go by FAA regulations. So in our park rules, we defer to FAA, but the FAA rules are really strict. You can't fly them over people. You have to keep it within your eyesight or your direct vision. You can't go over 400 feet, etc. But I just wanted to point that out.
All right, so in that other, where we asked people to specify, we had one person who said more mountain bike trails and less dog stuff. And one person that asked for the playground and Pleasant Glade entrance as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
And Julia, I had a question. So looking at the map where the dog park is going to be, I noticed that the majority of the dog park is wooded. Are there plans for like tree removal for some of these areas, or are we going to keep that dog park area a wooded and have it more trailed out than anything else for dogs?
Yeah, I think the intent was to make sure we had at least some open space, and that a majority of that might be through the trees. We don't really get into enough detail to sort of say, should some of those trees be removed or not? I think as it comes down to a final design of the dog park, there is likely some of the trees, particularly around the edges. We have kind of an open space, a parking lot. This eats into a little bit of those treed edges. What we often find is that we're limbing up some trees, and we're removing understories so that it's more of a mulched area underneath the trees, so that dogs you can see around. And so I imagine there'd be at least in if I'm kind of doing the next level of design, we'd make sure there's an open lawn space. You'd have a mulched open treed space, and then from there you have a series of trails that are just really trails through a forested understory. You have to recognize that understory doesn't survive long-term very well. You're going to have, more dogs going off the trails, etc. But you end up seeing long-term is a good designated trail and a whole lot of little sort of secondary trails that interconnect. And we just let that happen over time.
That's great.
How does a person know when they get to the edge of a off-leash dog park?
You do need a fence, and the fence needs to
Okay.
go around the entire, in this case, I think it's like
Ah.
almost 6 acres or just under 6 acres. So the bulk of the cost of the dog park is actually the
The
fence,
fence?
the stuff at the entry that provides ADA accessibility to that dog park. And then a little bit of that, just some material in the open lawn, because often it doesn't stay lawn. We all know it becomes a little bit more muddy. So you do tend to, we usually have some cost to bring in pea gravel or a mulch or something within that open space.
Cool. That's a lot of fence, but
It is a
makes
lot of
sense.
fence.
Makes
Mhm.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and at least in our budgets, we also, because of the zinc leaching, it's a vinyl coated chain link fence. But you can
Good.
get away with a shorter one. Doesn't have to be a full height, so at least you save a little there.
Good. No, that's good to know. Anybody else have questions?
Okay. Do you want
Let's just start building it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, let's just start building it. I mean, we've been talking about this for as long as I've been on the board. So it's like, let's go already, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
We're
Hey,
not quite
Jen.
there yet. You're
I
going to have a
know,
couple
I
more
know.
meetings.
That's what
Gary has a
our next
question.
step-
And that's what city council said too. So, so that helps. That helps.
It gets
Hey.
exciting when you get this close.
Hey,
It
Jen,
really is.
Yeah.
Gary has a question.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I was wondering, is this gonna be, is there any sewer available? Is this all on site?
So there's no sewer currently available. Part of our project cost actually to bring sewer to the main portion, this core area of the site. And then as the maintenance facility is developed, we'd pull sewer to the maintenance facility. And the assumption is there would be sewer built as part of the 31st Avenue extension. So pulling a restroom and sewer connection for that trailhead off of 31st would be fairly easy as part of that particular portion of the work. We do have a large cost to bring in sewer, and because we're at the low point, there's also a pump station that even if there was already sewer in Carpenter, we'd still likely need a pump station in order to be able to make the systems work.
Now, there's a lot of talking about Pleasant Glade. And is that related to the school?
Well, so Pleasant, there is a school called Pleasant Glade Elementary, and it is not far from the park properties, but it's different. We actually have a park property called Pleasant Glade Park. So when we talk about Pleasant Glade, do you want to show that slide, Juliet?
Yeah, let me zoom back up to the beginning here. We don't have too many slides with the overall plan because it's such a large site, but
and so Gary, there's 537 acres total. Yep. So there's, oh, you just saw the,
I'm getting there. Okay, let me get back to
yeah,
it.
that's okay.
Here we go. So
Yeah. So
the red is the boundary of the whole park site. That's the 500 acres. When we say Pleasant Glade, there's this portion over here. That is Pleasant Glade Park, that it's its own defined park boundary.
yeah, so that's a current park, but it's very minimal access right now. It's mostly open space. And so what we did, Gary, when we did this plan is we just planned the whole park and greenways, we called it, because it's 537 acres of adjacent park property. So we just, yeah, that's a good slide to show. We did the whole planning effort from a balcony view. It's like a 20-year plan, but we wanted to make sure we considered all the adjacent properties because there's a unique opportunity to have a trail system that, goes throughout the entire parcels, which is kind of a unique thing. So yeah.
I just need to come in and get some, look at some overall master plans.
Yeah, so Pleasant Glade School is located on Abernethy, which if you go to the western tip of Pleasant Glade there, and then you just drop south just a little bit, that's where the school is. So
I built that school, so I'm very familiar.
Okay. Yeah, so you're very familiar.
Yeah, they, I think they converted to sewage.
Oh, did they at the school, the sewer? Well,
I think we did run up on the east property line and run out to 15.
okay. Well, what
I
we've
don't
been
know if
told.
that was proposed anyway.
Okay, well, what we've been told by Public Works is that there won't be a connection to sewer at Pleasant Glade Park. And they don't want to put in septic tank because just because of the environmental impact, and that kind of goes against what the city's been trying to do in all of our other locations.
Right.
So yeah, I guess it's just far enough north that it's outside of that connection.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks, Gary.
So
Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Juliet.
No, I was just going to ask the same question.
Anybody else? Questions or reactions, anything?
I guess I wanted to close a little bit with just some of our next steps. So
Cool.
we are taking, so this is really the, with a couple of just that one small tweak with restrooms, this will represent the final master plan. We will also, however, though, have a report to go along with it. And that's where we describe some of these things that you keep hearing me talk about, as well as some of those future consideration elements, such as the zip lines, ropes, courses, and some of the things that are not in the master plan, but still things that could potentially happen in the future. So your next step is basically going to get that draft master plan report as a packet, so you can review the actual report. And we're working with the city right now to finish up the draft of that. You'll review that in another one of these meetings, and then ultimately we'll review that with City Council and ask for the Park Board's recommendation of approval to City Council. There does need to be SEPA done on the draft master plan. Well, essentially on the final master plan, but we'll get started with that SEPA now so that we can get a head start on it. And formal adoption of a master plan waits until after the SEPA is complete. So we might get approval from council on the actual plan itself and everything contained. Formal adoption might follow depending on the timeline for that SEPA process. And then you can get started on everything else.
Yeah. So yeah, and actually all that Juliet just said is actually going to happen pretty quickly here. So yeah, she'll be back again January 5th, which is your next meeting. If everything stays on schedule, to have, you know, what she noted, the not only the map, but also the accompanying narrative, and also the rough order of magnitude, which is the estimate of the cost. And then if you all are ready to make the recommendation to council, at that point, it would go to them for January 13th work session. And
Cool.
then ultimately on to the February 3rd city council meeting for final review, and then pending the SEPA, like Juliet said, we may have to go back to council, but yeah, we're wrapping up this part of the project pretty soon. And then it'll just be a matter of looking at that initial phase. I like to call it a bite-sized chunk out of phase one, because phase one, it says initial improvement, but it's actually a lot. And so if we could just like get people out there and you know, start using the property and then figure out what the next steps are from there. So definitely I'm working behind the scenes on, you know, funding for that initial phase, and excited to share more once we have it. So thank you, Juliet.
Thank you,
You are
Juliet.
welcome.
And very
Thank you very
exciting
much.
that the timing's so quick.
Yeah.
At this point, because you get this close, you know, you get excited. You just we wanted to, because you can visualize it. We're ready to go. That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juliet. Okay, item 7B is a COVID update. Do we have anything this month?
So just a couple quick things, just that the city's waiting to hear from LNI regarding mandatory vaccinations. I know you guys have probably heard a lot about different companies and agencies requiring that. We expect to hear a mandate very soon. We're anticipating that, but we just don't have the final word. And then just on the program side, want to thank Sue for working with staff. She is updating program safety plans as usual. We're still doing that. We've been doing that all through COVID, and you know, as you know, things change, and so we've been doing that. And then also since with our first indoor sports league running since COVID, so we were able to run youth basketball this year. This fall, we're working on updating our mitigation and exposure plan. We've been working very closely with the county. They've been super helpful, and so we're very appreciative for that. And that's really all I have for COVID.
Cool. Any questions? Anybody? Lacey Parks Outreach, 7C.
Okay, so as you know, Jason, our consultant, was here last month. He showed you the presentation and let you know we were going to be updating council at their November 18th work session, which we did. And I'm happy to report it went really well. They, you know, ultimately they were pleased with the engagement. they definitely wanted to further discuss the aquatics piece, which I'm going to show you a couple slides. And they, just really seemed genuinely excited to discuss the future vision for parks. And so there's going to be lots to talk about at your joint work session with them in February. So that's good. Because as you know, next steps is just identifying partnerships and what the city can do to bring all this cool stuff to Lacey. But I did want to share, he shared the slides, but there's a couple slides that weren't included that he added before the council work session. So just to kind of circle back, let me share my screen here. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, this was just like the very second slide. I think what you guys saw right after the main screen was just all the outreach, what we did actually to promote the parks outreach. But what we didn't show you is just the whole process, the background and the whole process at a glance. So I thought this could help you, as you know, it started with the Lacey Cares open-ended survey, which we had 1,300 participants. That was for everything City of Lacey. And then we got 6,000 inputs from the parks data harvest out of that, which we did our key takeaways and themes for parks. And then our wonderful outreach team that was formed with some of you all as well, went out in person. We had 200 participants and 800 inputs from those intercept surveys. And then we did our parks focused priority survey, which was open for most of the month of October. We had 1,200 participants. And so next steps is some more targeted outreach, and then updating the comp plan and syncing up with the greater Lacey Cares process for the city. So that was one of the slides. And then the other one I wanted to note was we kind of better defined where people lived and who responded. So this is interesting because 62.5% shared. So we didn't ask for exact addresses. As you know, this was not a statistically valid survey, which there is a time and place for that, which would be later. This is just general feedback, and sometimes it keeps people from doing the survey if you're asking for too much information. And so, but 700, what we thought was cool is 750 people out of 1,200 did share their exact or nearest location, and they were Lacey area people. And what this data also indicates is that we obviously serve more than Lacey. And so, we are a destination, and that's a positive. I see that as a positive because not only are we serving our residents really well, but we're also serving the greater area, and it's helping our business community, which is also part of our community, just a different segment of our community. So I think it's just interesting to note. And also just like being mindful moving forward who our audience is and what types of things, like if there's a potential ask in the future for funding, just looking at what types of things that we're asking for the public to fund. And then the last one that you guys hadn't seen was, so next steps. So basically, Jason is going to be sharing, he calls it a memo. It's a final report with recommendations. So that'll be coming. You'll get that along with council. And then next step is we will incorporate into our comprehensive plan update. We'll start working on that in the new year. It's on your work plan. Then we'll infill engagement and outreach gaps. And so this is that continued outreach that he talked about. Super exciting. We don't have our youth commissioner here tonight, Declan, but I have a meeting Friday to talk to the city staff who oversees the youth council. And the whole youth council wants to engage. They're focusing in December on Parks and Rec. And they want to engage and be like a focus group for us as well. So I'm super excited about that. Right. And then the other gaps, of course, we always want to reach underserved populations. What we found with our data was that the demographics, as far as people's backgrounds, matches up with what the city demographic is. But we did notice it was a higher income level that did complete this survey. So we want to try to target maybe lower income folks, and we're going to work with our Commission on Equity for that. So I'm excited to work on that. Talked about that one. Oh, we did ask the outreach team if they would please switch from an outreach team to a focus group. and let us come to them and vet certain ideas and just see if we're hitting the marks. And so they said yes. So we're super excited about that. At some point, we'll do a statistically valid survey. I talked about engaging our partners to leverage investments and achieve, goals for the greater community. Like together, we can get more things for the community, right? Parks can't do it alone. So we obviously engage with partners. And then we need to proactively address, so this is the question about the Aquatics and Swim Center. We definitely got a lot of feedback. That was one of the top things, along with any indoor recreation, because of course it rains most of the year here, but really people are wanting swim. And so that's something we're going to need to talk to partners and see if the city, is wanting to do anything different than what we had recommended, the park board had recommended prior. And then also looking at there was a lot of things that came up about safety, people feeling unsafe in parks. So that needs to be addressed. This one too, preserving and building access point to natural areas. That's something that we will proactively address. And then also just looking at how we are subsidizing recreation and, what types of programs are subsidized and to what level. So that's a lot of fun work that we get to engage in moving forward.
Jen?
Yeah.
Did City Council have any comments when faced with the level of interest for an aquatic center or a pool? Was there any conversation about the opportunity potentially, or revisiting this opportunity to be, Tri-City?
Yeah.
Did they chat about that?
Yeah, just very briefly. I think the fact that, the consultant kind of brought it up as, this is obviously something we need to address. I think it was just kind of a given, but yeah, they did. A couple different council members acknowledged, and one in particular just said, would we, strongly encouraged us to relook at that.
To look at it.
Tumwater Olympia project.
Okay, I was just curious.
Which they just finished their feasibility study. And so their next steps are to, try to figure out partners and funding. So yeah, it's a great time to have a conversation, and also with our nonprofits, such as the YMCA, for a long time, there's been a notion of a YMCA in Lacey, a really long time. Actually, with the original RAC plan, way back, there was thoughts about having aquatics at that site. And the city did, I think I've mentioned this to you before, the city paid for the YMCA to do a feasibility study back in 2017. And it was found that, yes, people would pay for and use a YMCA at that point. So yeah, there's
interesting.
A couple different prospects there.
Good. Well, at least it piqued their interest and was a fresh opportunity for them to get feedback from the community about how they feel about aquatics in our area.
For sure. And I see Camber's hand up.
Well, I was kind of thinking forward and kind of in relation to what you were speaking about earlier about how people from around are coming to Lacey to utilize these parks, and kind of bringing that also the attention about, getting out to Tumwater or something of that nature, to help invest into these, because it's likely that some of those other areas are, coming from those areas to enjoy our parks. So it makes it a smarter idea to come together and put funds together into these parks, because otherwise, we're going to unfortunately have to put it onto our city citizens in the city of Lacey. And then people from outside the area that are not Lacey citizens are going to be enjoying things that they're not paying for. So I'm, thinking about park impact fees being increased or something of that nature. So, that would be something that I would be strongly, suggesting, is kind of reaching out to those outer communities and kind of showing those, stats that you were showing, that people are coming into the community. As, I know in many cases, from my standpoint, a lot of people talk about they feel safer in Lacey as opposed to like Olympia. Not so much Tumwater, but there's not as much there as what I hear. So at least from the people that I've spoken to. So, but that's just what I really like the idea of, local agreements and projects together, as far as, especially with, seeing the stats that came in. So sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. And and it's a really good point you bring up, and I'm glad you did, because this is a great opportunity for me to share with some of the new park board members, is that Way back, gosh, I don't even know how many years ago, there was talk of a regional park district in Thurston County, to where similar to what Metro Parks Tacoma has, to where it's like it's a bigger organization and it's got its own board, right? So as the years went along, that just didn't, the cities couldn't get on the same page enough to make that happen. And so what's happened here is that there have been local park districts. So for anybody who doesn't know, a park district it can either be local or regional, and it's a funding mechanism for park services and recreation services. And so the local model allows a park district to go along the actual city boundary. And so Olympia passed a local metropolitan park district in 2015. And then Tumwater actually did propose one, and it passed in 2018. Lacey proposed one in 2018 as well. It was, it's a council decision to put it onto the ballot, and it didn't pass in Lacey. It was very close and it didn't pass. So now, as it sits now, the two cities of Tumwater and Olympia both have this, it's a long-term sustainable funding mechanism that, the money that's generated is a property tax, but the money that comes in is dedicated solely to parks. So it's different than other, the general fund, to where it's parks and police and public works and, everything city. And it also can be used for acquisition, development, or operations. So it's a very flexible, so it allows, because often we run into the challenge of, we can build something, we can get the capital dollars, but we can't afford to maintain it long-term. And so that's the thing with the MPD for short, is it's a sustainable, flexible, dedicated, funding source for parks. And so it's just interesting to me because, so the other agencies have the funding, and Lacey doesn't have that type of funding, but then people are coming, to use Lacey Parks. And so, yeah, I think it just it's just an interesting phenomenon, I'll say. So something that could be looked at in the future, potentially, just depending on what kind of interest there is. So.
Thanks, Camber. Any other questions, comments before we move on? Okay. New business, 8A is the Chinquale equipment agreement. Hope I didn't mispronounce that.
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Sue.
For years, Chinquale has bought goals for our city parks. Not just dedicated to the city, but for use in the city parks. They're used by all of the different soccer organizations, and anybody that's pretty much out there has had access to them. They've had to try to maintain them. They bought nets for them, but we have moved them from park to park depending on the season and where the need was. What they would like to do is similar to what they've been doing for the school district. They have been buying goals for different elementary schools and donating them to the school district so that they can have access to those and their kids can have access. They do provide the nets and make sure that everything is good on that end. But in that case, the district owns them and will maintain them. So what they're proposing is to turn over all of their goals that are already currently being used in our parks, and they will become City of Lacey property. They will still be willing to provide the nets. And if we grow as a city, they're willing to look at purchasing additional goals at that time if the need exists. We would be responsible for obviously pulling them off of the fields at the end of the seasons, maintaining when, if something gets broke, we would have a little more capacity to fix them than they did. So the basic agreement is they were wanting to turn all of them over to us. We will maintain the structure. They will make sure that they have nets and everything else that they need, but they will belong to the City of Lacey.
So
we're looking-
Sue, is that what drove it most, is the maintenance aspect to this?
Yeah, they just don't have the means. They don't have the vehicles to transport them to place. And they don't mind. They have the means to, to acquire them, but everybody's using them. So they
Right.
are on our city parks, and any
Right.
city group that is using that for soccer is also using those goals. So it made a little bit more sense that they actually belong to us.
Thanks, Sue. Any
we're
other?
looking-
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. We are looking for a motion
Right.
to approve the contract that's before you.
I'll move that we approve the Chinquale equipment agreement.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion pass. So item 8B, I think, Jen, we realized that the updated commissioner contacts wasn't included in the packet, so we're just going to push that to the next meeting. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So we're moving on. 8C then is the 2021 Park Board accomplishments.
Okay, thank you. Yes, in your packet is the accomplishments. We've had a couple of opportunities to look at them by now, so I'm hopeful. I'm just looking for a motion tonight, but also happy to answer any questions that you might still have for the accomplishments. And as you recall, we highlight the ones from the work plan that are completed by the end of the year, and then we do other noteworthy achievements towards the bottom.
I'll move that we approve the 2021 accomplishments.
I will second.
Thanks, Aaron.
Geez,
Any
Aaron's
other-
just too fast.
No, I'm sorry. Did you have comments?
No. I was going to second it. He's just way too fast. Trigger happy over there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passed. And then kind of dovetailing on that is the 2022 work plan.
Yes, thank you. And so similar situation, we've looked at it, we've talked it through, we've made changes, hopeful for a motion tonight to accept the 2022 work plan, but happy to answer questions you might have.
I move to approve the 2022 work plan.
Go, Irwin. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passed. Do we have a Park Foundation update tonight?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a quick update, and it's not falling under their committee because they aren't actually here, but great news, they're going to be here soon. I know I keep saying that. But yeah, in your packet, you'll notice that there is an amendment to the Park Foundation agreement. I'm not looking for a motion because it's actually just an extension of a couple of months. Just because they got started a little bit later on this project. There's no content change, but I just want to keep you in the loop on what's going on, and it's kind of exciting. And along the lines, Commissioner Good, about collaboration, each city has a separate contract with the Park Foundation, but with the same vision, but the challenge has been getting the contracts executed at the same time. And so that's why we had the delay. But we're really excited. So things are underway finally for the Park Foundation to redevelop their organizational model. And so they have gotten lots of input from the city park directors. We've been working with them, but they are making change to their board of directors, their leadership, and their staffing. And so some of the things they're focusing on are building capacity to be able to help. Their missions and objectives, which includes developing an annual work plan with the cities. This is what we've been trying to get. So we're very excited about that. Grant writing, which is an area we definitely needed help with. And then also just building public awareness with their marketing and outreach of the importance and value of parks, recreation, and culture. So that's my update. We're just super excited. Oh, one of the things too, sorry, I forgot to say, is they will be supporting a landmark project for each city each year. And so, and that actually is an assignment that I have by the end of the year to report back what we would like them to support. So since we just looked at the work plan, my recommendation would be the community garden pilot project, the parks volunteer program, or the Glade Cuyo Park initial phase, in that order. And so, and the reason is that I put Glade Cuyo last, even though we're really excited about that project. It's just that I think we're still going to have to figure out like funding. We're not quite ready yet. We're close, but we're not quite ready. Whereas the community garden pilot project and the volunteer program, we've been, trying to get that going. And so I think we could use some more support with that. We got really put behind with COVID on some of this stuff. But like in particular, the garden, the food forest at Woodland Creek Park, I really think if we had some more support, we could, or maybe help applying for a grant. As you know, we almost were able to put in for that USDA grant this year, but couldn't quite pull it off. So I guess my ultimate vote would be community garden pilot project for them to support. But I don't need a motion, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So you'd like our feedback tonight on one of those choices, or do you want us to think about it and get back to you next time, or what are you hoping for?
Yeah, so I know it's kind of, I'm throwing it at you, but they would like it by the end of the year. And so we don't actually meet, don't meet till the 5th of January. So
so what do folks think?
I trust staff's judgment.
Cool.
I second that.
I can go with that. Anyone else have strong feelings in any other direction?
I like that food garden that she was talking about. I'm pretty pro that. We were working on a community garden with a Hero's Promise over at Gateway Church over there before we moved our office. And, I'm really big on that. And then the one that you guys on that closed loop park that you guys kind of had there, and the composting and things like that. I think that would be a great addition. So
cool.
Fantastic. And I would love to connect with you on some of your other contacts, Camber, for that. So, because we're really trying to build momentum. We've got some great partners on board. We've been along the themes of working on this for a long time. We developed policy, we did the resolution with city council, and we've got all the partners, and we just need money. So,
all right.
I know how to grant write too, so just holler. So just let me know.
Woo! That's good to know. We can always use resources.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
Remember, this is a volunteer capacity. Be careful what you offer.
Well, she already knows, like that's kind of my bread and butter. I'm everywhere. So
yeah, but like in all your spare time though, right?
Right.
For grant writing.
Cool. Okay. So it sounds like you got what you need there, Jen. Okay.
Yep.
So on 8F, which is the 2022 calendar, just real quick, want to point out, which I noticed, but just in case anyone has questions and because we have new park board members. So we do try annually to have a joint session with city council, work session. And since that falls fairly early in the month in February, we're not proposing a separate meeting for our board. That will be our meeting for February. Otherwise, it's pretty standard. So tonight, unless you have questions, we're just looking for a motion to approve the calendar for 2022.
Would there be a possibility, since we never got the chance to really have any extended time walking the grounds or seeing anything of extended area of Greg Cuyo? When we visited last time, we basically just saw the park, that one little parking lot area, and that was it. Is there a chance to, like, in 2022 having kind of a little bit more in-depth walkthrough of the area?
I love going out there. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
The only sensitivity is just the in-person stuff. I'm just so hopeful that for 2022 we can start having in-person meetings, and it's
right.
Good
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point.
It's good that it's outside. I mean, that's why we haven't done our field trips. We used to do tours for Park Board twice a year, and it was just because of COVID we haven't. But yes, I will get you guys out there at the earliest opportunity.
Perfect.
Jen, too, to Aram's point, if COVID continues to be an issue for us to be, together in an enclosed van, maybe we can make arrangements to all meet there. Because, then we remove that risk factor and we could still, take advantage of walking around a little more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's not a ton of parking space.
Oh, right. Parking,
But-
sorry, there's no parking yet.
If
sorry.
you're willing to take your vehicle off-road a little bit,
I didn't
no.
think that through, sorry.
no, it's okay. We can probably strategically come up with some spots. So actually on the Pleasant Glade side, that's the easiest because there is a really flat spot that I can open the gate. The west side of Carpenter
Not so much.
for Great Cuyo, it's tricky, but we can fit. Yeah, we could. Yeah,
Well, something to
figure
think
it out.
about, that's
Yes.
all.
I
Just
definitely
trying to
want
take the van off the table.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
So can I, any other questions or comments, or can we get a motion on the 2022 calendar?
I'm gonna give someone else a chance.
I'll
Amber,
make
you
a
have a-
motion for the 2022 calendar.
All right. Thank you, Camber. Second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Erwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, so a little drum roll here. So item 8G is the 2022 Commissioner nominations and elections. So at this meeting, we're hoping to nominate the chair and vice chair for next year. So when Jen and I chatted about this, we have a couple interesting points just for commissioners to think about. So we had kind of hoped that, given that we have so many new commissioners that just started late in the year, we had hoped to have one of the existing commissioners serve as chair for next year. I let Jen know that I'm not interested in continuing as chair for next year, so I'm taking myself off the table. But that said, Troy is absent tonight, and so he would not be eligible. And we looked at the term expirations, and we think, and Erwin, you can tell me if you understand otherwise, Erwin's term expires during this year, which I think also makes him ineligible. So if we wanted to pick an existing board member, it would be Aram, and I would be happy to nominate Aram with that said, but
Default.
the default nominee. Woo! So, but on the other hand, that's not to say that one of our new commissioners might have an interest and feel, we're just interested in hearing feedback from any of the new members who might have thoughts about wanting to serve or preferring to wait, until you've had some experience with the board. But, bottom line is what's typically involved is, you can see that the chair kind of makes sure that we're on track with the agenda. And Jen and I set up this year that we do a pre-meeting, which is typically sort of 45 minutes, in the couple days before, so that the chair will review the packet, go over any questions. It's just been helpful, kind of, teasing out any possible questions or finding, anything that might need addressing in advance. And other than that, Jen, you might have to speak to any additional, responsibilities that go along with being chair, because then it's kind of random depending upon what's on our workload, what's in our queue for the year. Maybe you can speak to a little for what we're expecting for 2022, just to see if anyone has thoughts or, or whatever, just to give people a sense of what might be involved.
Sure. Yeah. And so a good sense would be the work plan. Now, we don't always finish all the items on our work plan. Unfortunately, we have high aspirations, right? But something of note is the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Comprehensive Plan update. That's going to be a big one. And then the obviously the Great Cuyo project is going to continue, and we'll be doing some additional outreach. So to advise the comp plan and continue with our outreach. And so those are the things that come to mind. It doesn't necessarily, even though we have large projects, it doesn't necessarily equate to more time spent. But yeah, you're right. It does fluctuate just depending on,
So there could be just a sprinkling of random additional, meetings or interactions, but that just kind of goes with the job. So discussion, questions, thoughts? I'm actually mostly hoping to hear from some of our new members, just to see what your comfort level might be with continuing with some of our seasoned, our seasoned representative, Aram, or thoughts about perhaps stepping up and doing something, even though you're relatively new.
I guess for me, I'm finishing up my master's degree and I'm gonna have to leave for residency, so I can't be as available as necessary. So I think I need to take myself off the table for this year for sure.
Cool.
That way that you have your chair here every single month, and I just know that that's coming in a few months. So
That's good. Thank you. And I don't see Wendy or is Gary. Gary's gone.
Oh,
Now,
wait.
do we even still have a quorum, right?
Oh, gosh.
Is 4 a
2,
quorum?
3, 4, yes. Phew. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
they're having tech difficulties.
Do you,
I see Gary's tablet is in the attendees. Sarah Smith, do you want to try bringing him in?
just see if he's even hearing us?
Yeah, I've been,
Oh, here's Wendy's back.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I've been trying to get him promoted in. He's there though. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he can hear you. We're just trying to get him on the panel, not as an attendee.
That's totally
Oh.
fine. We're just wanted to know if he was still able to hear what we're doing. Well, so at least as a next step, I'd like to go ahead and nominate Aram Wheeler to serve as chair for 2022 for the park board. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
All right. And I think, Aram, you said you're willing. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
Gary?
you, everyone.
Gary? Is Gary a yes? I just want to make sure everyone's on board. I'm going to assume
Gary's an
so.
aye.
Okay.
A lone dissent.
Thank you. I know it's a formality. I just want everyone to be on record. So thank you and congratulations, Sarah.
Everyone.
No, thrilled to have you serve for next year. That's great. Yay.
And now we need a
Exciting.
vice. And we need a vice chair as
Yes,
well.
sorry.
No,
I
that's
was-
okay.
I was letting the dust settle on my excitement over the transition, passing that baton right now. Okay, so for vice chair, do I hear any nominations?
I guess the question would be, this would be a good opportunity for one of the newer, I know Camber, you said that you were, kind of wanted to leave yourself off the table for that, but Wendy or Gary, this would be a good opportunity if you would want to serve in a vice chair opportunity to be able to, just grow in that leadership role and feel more prepared for when you are chair eventually, because that's always our goal, is everyone have that opportunity, hopefully eventually. So do any of you have an interest in wanting to do that if you were nominated?
Oh, I would do it. This is Gary.
Okay.
Cool.
Wendy?
I'm good for right now. I'm having a hard time getting in my computer to stay on when people are sharing their screens. I've got some computer issues going on, and the agendas and meetings I'm having a hard time getting as well. So I think there's
Okay.
some things I need to work out before I.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Then I would like to nominate Gary for vice chair.
And I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Cool. We're done.
Thank you. And thank you, Gary, for being willing to serve. This is very exciting and it'll give us a fresh perspective in our leadership team and a good partner for Aram, and appreciate you both being willing to take this on. It's not a ton of extra work, but it definitely is an important position, and really appreciate your willingness to do it. Thank you.
Well, and go ahead.
I just hope that we revisit Frisbee golf at McAllister Park. So that'll actually give some work for Aram and Gary.
I was fortunate to have to run one of those meetings while you were unavailable.
That's right.
For the McAllister. So, but I was going to say I've had the opportunity of following Both times I've served as, following two amazing individuals. Sarah, you have ran these meetings amazingly over the last year. Such professionalism and such, just care of what you do. Like I appreciate it. And Erwin, being able to be vice chair under you during that difficult time really was an eye-opening experience on what this position entailed and what it deserves. So I appreciate both of you guys, and I've learned more from you guys in those roles than I have from the majority of leadership I've been able to witness. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's nice. I appreciate it. Okay. So 8H, open public meetings training. I know we're all looking forward to this. Apparently Jen mentioned it's a 16, to be specific, 16-minute video. So for those of you who want to stick around, meaning if there's anyone who doesn't have to be here, otherwise we're going to proceed with that training and then move on to our director's reports and closing. So I think that's Jen is going to take us there.
Yeah, and I promise we'll be quick with our closings.
Yes.
And this is the final training. So everybody will be fully trained on that and won't have to do it for, it's 3 or 4 years. I can't recall off the top of my head, but we gotta get her done.
So pay attention now.
We'll see in a little bit. Sarah Smith will roll the tape.
Thank you.
One moment here. It says it's registering it as an iPad thing. Oh, what? Give me 1 second. What is happening?
Is it in the cards for us or not?
It is for some reason trying to register it as an iPhone video, which it says I need an additional plugin for, which is news to me. Ah, there it goes. Okay, cool. Got it. Okay, no such luck, everyone. We're watching it.
Okay, and we will make sure and let you know if we can hear it.
Okay.
So I know that's been a problem before. And we cannot hear it.
You can hear it?
Nope.
Come on.
Sarah, I think when you click on share screen, when you select the video, in that window, there's I think there's a square thing that you have to select for sound.
Okay. It keeps popping off and on my share screen options. Okay, my apologies. This is very weird. Okay, we're just gonna try and do it this way. Okay, weird.
I know some, last time you had it, I think the same problem or similar.
Yes, it's very odd.
Well, maybe it's not in the cards for us tonight.
Okay, let me see if it's worked. I just tried closing it and reopening it.
And if it doesn't work, Jen, is it an option for us to do 9 while Sarah tries to figure it out?
Oh,
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you'd have to.
Has to be one or the other.
You'd have to amend the. I think
Can you
just have to.
Oh, I see what you mean. Go ahead.
Can you see the video on my screen now?
We can see the screen.
Okay.
We just can't hear it.
Okay, give it just a moment.
Sure. Sarah Daniels, you'd have to just amend the agenda real quick, which you could do. The other thing we could do is just have everybody watch it on their own and report back to Sarah that they watched it.
Okay.
So if it doesn't work, that's
Can you hear it at all?
No, we still can't hear it.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay, I'm gonna need to, I apologize. I think I'm gonna need to meet with John to find out why.
Okay.
Okay.
Not letting me share it for some reason.
Okay.
So you'll send
Hey,
us a link or something.
Sarah, sorry, when you clicked on share screen, on the left bottom of that screen, it says share sound, and you have to select that.
Okay, let me pull this up.
See if you can see that on the window when you select share screen.
Yeah, let me see if it gives me that option. Share screen. Share. It does not look like it gives me that option.
Okay.
That's weird. There we go. Okay, let's try this.
This training video provides an overview of the Open
Can you hear it?
Public Meetings Act for
Yes.
both the general public and for
Thank
public
you.
audiences. It is intended to provide a greater understanding of the legal requirements of this important act. The Open Public Meetings Act is a law passed by the people of the state of Washington in 1971 at the time of a nationwide effort to make government affairs more accessible and government more responsive. The purpose of the act is to provide the public access to information concerning the conduct of state and local government. The law is based on the principle that open government is essential to a free society. The act provided the people of our state the opportunity to witness the deliberations and the decisions of their government. State and local agencies, such as school boards, city and county councils, and state commissions, must comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. Actions and deliberations of these governing bodies must be conducted openly. Meetings subject to the Act must be open to the public, gavel to gavel, unless a law permits a meeting or a part of the meeting to be closed. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you find this training informative.
This training presentation is based on the Open Public Meetings Act. The OPMA is in RCW 42.30. This training video contains 15 short segments. The Attorney General just discussed Segment 1, the history, intent, and purpose of the Act. In the remaining segments, we will cover scope of the OPMA, what is a governing body, what is a meeting, what is action, what is final action, travel and gathering, regular meetings, special meetings, executive sessions, public attendance and comment, minutes, liability, other laws, and additional resources. The Act has several clear requirements, and compliance with them is improved with training. Training can mean the difference between complying with the law and expensive litigation. The Act applies to governing bodies of multi-member public agencies, both state and local. Public agency includes A, any state board, commission, committee, department, educational institution, or other state agency which is created by or pursuant to statute other than the courts and the legislature. B, any county, city, school district, special purpose district, or other municipal corporation or political subdivision of the state of Washington. C, any subagency of a public agency which is created by or pursuant to statute, ordinance, or other legislative act, including but not limited to planning commissions, library or park boards, commissions, and agencies. And D, any policy group whose membership includes representatives of publicly owned utilities formed by or pursuant to the Washington laws when meeting together or on behalf of participants who have contracted for the output of generating plants being planned or built by an operating agency. In some cases, an entity which is not an agency can still be subject to the Act when it is the functional equivalent of a public agency. This determination depends on whether it performs a government function, receives government funding, the extent of government involvement or regulation, and whether the entity was created by government. Examples of public agencies subject to the Act include city councils, county councils, school boards, fire district boards, and state commissions. Agencies governed by an individual, such as a single director, are not subject to the Act. Some activities of public agencies are not subject to the OPMA. They include certain licensing and permitting activities, quasi-judicial matters, matters governed by the Washington State Administrative Procedure Act, APA, and certain collective bargaining activities. All meetings of the governing body of a public agency shall be open in public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting of the governing body of a public agency, except as otherwise provided in the OPMA. A governing body is defined as the multi-member board, commission, committee, council, or other policy or rulemaking body of a public agency, or any committee thereof, when the committee acts on behalf of the governing body, conducts hearings, or takes testimony or public comment. Meeting means meetings at which action is taken. Physical presence of the members is not required. A meeting can occur by phone or in some cases by email. I will talk more about email exchanges later in this video. A meeting does not need to be titled meeting. The OPMA also applies to retreats, workshops, and study sessions. A meeting does not occur if there is not a quorum. Both actions and final actions are subject to the OPMA. Action means the transaction of the official business of a public agency by a governing body, including but not limited to receipt of public testimony, deliberations, discussions, considerations, reviews, evaluations, and final actions. Final action means a collective, positive, or negative decision, or an actual vote by a majority of the members of a governing body when sitting as a body or entity upon a motion, proposal, resolution, order, or ordinance. Final actions must occur in public. Secret ballots are not allowed. A majority of the members of a governing body may travel together or gather for purposes other than a regular meeting or special meeting, so long as no action is taken. And remember, action includes discussion of agency business. This means a quorum of members can travel to a meeting together, or they can gather at a public or private event, such as a festival or social function, so long as they do not collectively discuss agency business or matters. Regular meetings are recurring meetings held in accordance with a periodic schedule by ordinance, resolution, bylaws, or other rule. State agencies file the notice of regular meetings each year with the Office of the Code Reviser. Regular meeting agendas are to be posted online on an agency's website 24 hours in advance, unless the agency does not have a website or if it employs fewer than 10 full-time equivalent employees. Special meetings are meetings that are not regular meetings, called by the presiding officer or a majority of the members. This means they are meetings not on a fixed schedule, such as on a day different than the regularly scheduled meetings. Certain notice requirements apply to special meetings. For example, 24-hour advance written notice must be provided to members of the governing body unless waived, provided to local newspapers, radio, and TV stations that have a request on file, posted on the agency's website if the agency has a website, unless other exceptions apply for agencies with few staff, and prominently displayed at the main entrance and the meeting site. The notice must specify the time, place, and business to be transacted. There is an exception to the notice requirements for emergency special meetings. Those are meetings involving injury or damage to persons or property, or the likelihood of injury or damage, where time requirements make notice impractical and increase likelihood of injury or damage. the OPMA, an executive session is a part of a regular or special meeting that is closed to the public for the limited purposes listed in the OPMA. The grounds for holding an executive session are narrowly construed. The purpose of the executive session and the time it will end must be publicly announced before excluding the public, and the time can be extended by further announcement. Examples of purposes include certain real estate discussions, reviewing negotiations on publicly bid contracts under certain conditions, evaluating the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, and meeting with legal counsel regarding enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation. The OPMA provides a list of authorized executive session purposes at RCW 42.30.110. In addition, a public agency can have a closed meeting to discuss matters not subject to the OPMA, such as deliberating on a quasi-judicial matter. Other laws may provide additional procedures or authority for particular meetings or hearings, or for particular agencies. An agency must carefully follow the law when meeting in an executive or closed session. For example, when meeting in an executive session under the OPMA to discuss agency enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation, there are 3 requirements. First, legal counsel representing the agency must be present. Second, the purpose is to discuss an agency enforcement action, litigation, or potential litigation to which the agency, governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is a party or is likely to become a party. And finally, public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. Remember, an agency can discuss only those matters in an executive session under the OPMA that it has told the public it would discuss. The members cannot talk about other topics in that executive session. As we discussed, all meetings of the governing body of a public agency shall be open and public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting of the governing body of a public agency, except as otherwise provided in the OPMA. An agency also cannot place conditions on attendance, such as requiring persons to register their names or fill out a questionnaire before attending. As noted, email or phone call discussions among members of a governing body can be a meeting under the OPMA. But the purpose of the OPMA is to permit the public to attend and observe agency meetings. So when the public is unable to attend email or phone call discussions that are meetings under the OPMA, the Act has been violated. For example, it is generally agreed that the members can meet via a teleconference call so long as 1. Any public notice procedures are satisfied, and 2. An agency sets up a process for the public to attend, such as having a speakerphone available at the agency's official meeting location so the public can hear the discussion. In contrast, since an email exchange among a quorum of members of a governing body is not open to the public, such an exchange in which action takes place is a meeting that would violate the OPMA. And remember again, action is broadly defined. Those email exchanges do not comply with public notice and attendance requirements for regular or special meetings. The OPMA does not include a requirement that public agencies allow public comment. Nevertheless, many public agencies do permit some public comment period at a meeting, such as at the beginning of a meeting. Agencies can put reasonable procedures in place to allow for public comment. And the OPMA has procedures for dealing with disruptions when the orderly conduct of the meeting is unfeasible. The minutes of all regular and special meetings, except executive sessions of such boards, commissions, agencies, or authorities, shall be promptly recorded, and such records shall be open to public inspection. That law does not require any specific format for minutes. That law also does not require an audio or video recording of a meeting, although many agencies make such recordings. We have advised that the minutes should, at a minimum, recite the significant actions of the agency. Violations of the OPMA can result in a lawsuit against an agency and its members. A court can impose a $500 civil penalty as personal liability against each member who attends a meeting in knowing violation of the OPMA, and a $1,000 penalty for a subsequent knowing violation. A court can declare any action taken at a meeting not held in compliance with the OPMA null and void. And a court will award costs and attorney's fees to a successful party seeking a remedy under the OPMA. To recap, this presentation covers the highlights of the Open Public Meetings Act. Public agencies may be subject to other laws governing other particular meeting or hearing procedures or governing particular agencies. And the laws concerning agency meetings and hearings can also be amended from time to time. Therefore, agencies are cautioned to be mindful of all the current laws concerning their meeting and hearing procedures.
Thanks for participating in the Attorney General's Open Government Training. For more information, there are resources available for agencies to receive training and technical assistance for compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. An official should first consult with its agency's counsel for routine assistance and for training. Additional resources are listed on this website. The Assistant Attorney General for Open Government, Nancy Creer, is also available to provide information about the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay. Thank you.
I prepared a quick 7-question quiz for everyone.
Are you chair now? You could take over immediately and I'd be happy to answer your 7 questions. I take that as a no. Okay. Okay. Director's report, staff presentation. No.
Nope.
Sports Commission, do we have anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Is Sue still here for, yes?
Yep.
Programs and special events?
Not a whole lot going this go around. We do have the lighted parade and the Christmas tree lighting this coming Monday. It'll go, I think it's at 7 o'clock. They'll be doing the lighted parade like they had before around Fred Meyer's, and then finishing up at Huntermore Park where they'll be lighting the Christmas trees.
6:30.
We have been working with HR, and I think we came to some agreeable solutions for the aquatics. They're going to allow them to hire the ones that are not lifeguards and are basically teaching swim lessons without the drug test. And if they're moving into the lifeguarding position or taking the class that our staff teaches, they'll have 60 to 90 days to go in and be drug tested. So that'll alleviate the problem of not being able to get them on board and get them working. They won't be able to work as lifeguards, but they can work as swim instructors. And that's where one of our biggest needs are. So that was a real positive thing today. We've got, Sean is working on doing the allocations for the 2022 tournaments out at the Regional Athletic Complex. We have youth basketball going. We had a couple little glitches at the very beginning, but it's going well and everybody's having a lot of fun. And that's it.
Sue, are you also the rack gravel parking lot? Or is that Jen?
They are moving forward, I believe, Jen, with that project for 2022.
Yep, I was just gonna show you the rendering if you guys want to see that.
Sure.
Okay, and let me share my screen here. And I think the parade starts at 6:30 actually, just to tag on to what Sue said, and it's more towards the 7 o'clock with the lighting ceremony in the park. So you'll see us both out there where we'll be at the start line, right, Sue? Getting them all started.
Yes, I will. Yes, I'll be there.
Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so this is the rack gravel parking lot conversion. It's actually pending the 2022 budget approval later this month, but staff, they almost have the design finished because design wasn't approved. The design piece was approved last year, excuse me, this year in 2021. So we wouldn't move forward without, of course, council authorization, but this just shows you that the gravel lot that's currently there, this is Silicon Road here, this is Marvin Road. We will be able to have 386 parking spots, which will be paved. This includes security cameras and lighting, which we're very excited about. There'll be access points here and here for people to get in and out of. And we're very excited about this feature, a bus drop off right here.
Wow,
And then there'll be a nice kind of plaza area here.
excellent.
So anyway, pretty exciting to be able to invest in that infrastructure.
It looks good.
So, and I don't have anything else
Okay.
to report. Well, sorry, I should say, because it's our last meeting of the year, just how much I appreciate this commission and all the hard work that you guys put in and your interest in parks, culture, and recreation. It's such an important part of our community. And just really appreciate you guys being on the board and all of your support. And special thank you to Sarah Daniels for being chair. I know it's not your favorite thing in the world, but to echo what Aram said, you just do such a phenomenal job in anything that you do. So very much appreciate working with you this past year and all of your efforts. I know it's been a lot. So thank you.
Well, ditto. I think I speak for everyone, but I don't intentionally speak for anyone. That my admiration for the work that staff does is also immense. I really appreciate your dedication and the excitement and passion you have for the job really shines through, and it's contagious. And I think, the city is lucky to have you in that role. So I'm thrilled to work with you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, so commissioners reports. So again, just for a refresher for our new commissioners, this is just an opportunity for you to share, anything that you may have done related to your work on the Parks Board, or just something you may just want to share in general. It's your time to check in. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share this month. Nobody. Okay, good. That's fine. Chair's report. I think, what I just said about the city and Jim, that's my report. Okay. Committee reports, no. Guess what? We're adjourned. My computer doesn't have the time, so my clock probably inaccurately says 7:24.
Pretty good.
Thank you all. Appreciate everyone. I'm excited for next year. And thank you, Aaron, for, I guess that's my commissioner report.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Happy
everyone.
Holidays.
Happy holidays,
everyone.
Hopefully see you guys on Monday. I'll be there.
Yeah, we'll see you Monday.
Yeah, see you there.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for the sandwich. We did good.
Thank you for the